Warning: Tongue and Geek contains heavy spoilers. If you haven't read, watched, or played the content being reviewed this episode, know that we will definitely spoil major plot points. Also, this show isn't for kids. We use words like and and it would take too much time and effort to edit them all out. Please don't tell our moms. Hello, lovely listeners, and welcome to Tongue and Geek, where two more white guys on the internet give their unsolicited opinions on all things geeky. I'm Isaac.
I'm Tyler.
And today we're doing something a little bit different. Instead of reviewing a specific show or a comic or whatever, we're going to be having a general discussion on the topic of fandom, and specifically, the toxic behavior in fandom.
Woo!
Woo! Fun topic. I guess we should just start off by talking about what we mean when we talk about toxic fandom. You have any opening points on that?
I mean, there's so many attitudes and behaviors that encompass toxic fandom, but for me, what it boils down to is entitlement and gatekeeping.
Yeah.
Just those are the two big ones, and that, in and of itself, is a whole wide array of just fuckery. So, just gatekeeping and entitlement. That's what it all boils down to.
Which gatekeeping, which I'm sure anybody listening to this knows, is where people basically keep other people out because they're not fan enough or they're not good enough fans to enjoy the content. I read an article by Rachel Leffler at Real Rundown. She does a good job of describing what toxic fandom is. She talks about three key elements. Possessiveness, which is when fans feel like they own the content they're fans of. Entitlement, which you said, which is very much tied to possessiveness. And it's the creators must do what they demand. And then lastly, feelings of superiority, where toxic fans feel superior to other fans who are less intense or obsessive than they are.
Yeah.
I think that's a pretty good breakdown of what toxic fandom is, at least in general. Something I kind of want to talk about is what behaviors might be considered, I guess, cringe, but not necessarily toxic.
That's a good point. Cringe, but not necessarily toxic.
Because here's an example I was thinking of, like the Pickle Rick thing. Like, that's obnoxious as shit because that joke got, like, memed to death and now it's everywhere. But I wouldn't necessarily consider that, like, a toxic element of the community. It's just, like, a cringe element of the community.
Yeah, I guess that also boils down to how one describes or defines toxicity, because when that's season 3, Rick and Morty, right? When that happened?
Yeah.
Pickle Rick?
I think so.
Once season 3 rolled around, that's when the fandom was huge. Like, it really, like, exploded. And that's when the pushback against the show and the fandom happened, because, you know, the fandom just started acting obnoxious about it with, you know, that whole meme of, like, to be honest, you have to have a really high Q to understand Rick and Morty, that whole thing.
Yeah.
I'm sure everybody stumbled across that. That came from the attitude of the fandom of Rick and Morty, of just like, you just don't understand it. It's on a higher level. You have to understand what they're like. It's metaphysical and metaphorical, and it has all these like scientific ideas that just like you can't be a layman to understand the, you know, complex humor of Rick and Morty. And I'm speaking as a massive Rick and Morty fan. We both are.
Yeah.
But, the Pickle Rick thing, yeah, it's cringe, but it also, I don't know if you saw it, but it also can be described as toxic, because there was this video that kind of went viral of this kid being recorded by his friends at like McDonald's, like screaming in a Rick voice about the Szechuan Mulan sauce.
Oh yeah, the Szechuan sauce definitely counts as toxic behavior.
Yeah, and I think he went with the pickle. I can't remember if he screamed Pickle Rick in that video or not. And some people try to defend him. Oh, he's just trolling. Like, he's not being serious. Like, that's not it's still shitty behavior either way.
Once you start harassing people with it, absolutely it becomes toxic. And he wasn't the only incident either. There was multiple incidents where, like, the police got called and, like, people were stealing stuff from those McDonald's. Like, once you're actually, like, causing harm to others, it's definitely toxic behavior.
not to sound cynical, but I mean, it's not cynical because it's the truth. Every fandom, every fandom, no matter how big the property or small the property or niche it is, has a toxic element. Literally every one of them. There's no escaping it.
Well, here's what I also want to elaborate on with toxic fandom. When I talk about toxic fandom, I'm not talking about an entire group of fans or even a majority of fans of any given property. I'm talking about specific behaviors within the fandom that are toxic. You know?
Yeah.
Like, there's always... And I think it varies from fandom to fandom because, like, certain elements of the series that people are fans of, like, speak to them in different ways. Like, with Rick and Morty, you get these people who think they're intellectuals and everything, and they compare themselves to Rick. But with other series, like with, like, Steven Universe or something, you might get people who are, like, very, very overly social justice warrior and be like, you can't draw these characters thin, that's fat shaming, or you can't, like, this is only for, like, LGBT people, it's not for anybody else, like...
the whole Steven Universe thing.
Yeah, like, like, the forms of toxicity are different between communities, between fan communities, but I don't think any particular fandom on its own is toxic. There's just different toxic behaviors between different fandoms.
Oh, but you're not engaged in the Star Wars fandom. I don't know if I should just go in on it right now or not, but...
One last thing I want to talk about with sort of defining what we mean by toxic. Another big element I think of it is sort of like the persecution complex that these people get. Is like, man, everybody's out to get me because I'm the only one who really gets this, and it makes me special and different than everybody else, and they see basically the fandom and the extremists within the fandom as sort of like a safe haven, whereas everybody outside is out to get them, and that's just not true in the slightest. It's just some people aren't going to appreciate the things that you do.
Mm-hmm. You'd figured, you know, in this age of enlightenment that we live in, people would understand that now, but
yeah,
they don't.
Do you want to jump straight into Star Wars? We can do an example, kind of mix it up.
Yeah, I'll just get it out of the way because, well, like most people, I like Star Wars. I'm a big fan. Jesus. Going back to what you said about it's not groups of people, and for the most part, that's true, and I agree. But there's an actual movement within the fandom of Star Wars called the Fandom Menace. They embrace that title. They are an actual group of people. I would say that Star Wars probably has the most toxic fan base of all time. Not necessarily, well, because of how shitty they are, but just because the sheer size of the franchise and how long it's been around and how ubiquitous it is in our culture. Mm-hmm. The things you hear if you spend enough time online in Star Wars communities are just it will blow your mind. The amount of bigotry, of sexism, of gatekeeping, of just takes that you would not believe. And what makes it worse is that these people are a minority, but they're so loud and they're so pervasive and they just won't shut up that they taint everything around it. You cannot just enjoy Star Wars on the internet. It's impossible, no matter where you are. If you want to talk about it, if you want to look it up, that toxic element is there to some capacity. It permeates everything. And to be fair, I'm not talking, both of us, we're not talking about people that just have different opinions, right? No. Obviously people are allowed to disagree if it's respectful and you don't take it too seriously. We're not talking about those people. We're talking about, like we said, the gatekeepers, the sense of entitlement, that kind of stuff.
Yeah. I'll say this real quick, specifically in regards to not being able to find, like, civil discussions of Star Wars on the internet. Like, the internet's an echo chamber, you know? Like, once one opinion gets going, it sort of reverberates around as people keep repeating it over and over and over. And like-minded groups of people, like on Reddit and forums or wherever, they'll cluster into groups, so they look larger than they are because, like, here's an enormous, like, collective of them all together in one spot. But when you actually compare them to, like, the overall people. I mean, there's tons of people who don't talk about Star Wars online at all and like the franchise. You know, I'm one of those people. I never talk about Star Wars online, and I really enjoy the franchise for the most part. But, like, in general on the internet, it's like it's always going to be an echo chamber because it's just designed that way on social media, on forum posts, on everything. It's like like-minded people are going to come and talk in the same general spaces, and it's going to make it seem like there's more of them than there actually are.
Yeah, that's true, and it's a good thing to keep in mind. But at the same time, like, it's hard because if you want to engage in a fandom with other people, with like-minded people, it just makes it so hard because of that echo chamber effect. Like, so most people are just a-okay with just being, you know, just enjoying their thing, and, you know, that's what they do. They enjoy it to themselves. They don't need to branch out and engage with people online about it. But for the people who do, that's part of the fun. And when you have a toxic group of people that infest everything with their nonsense, it's a real bummer and a buzzkill. We could make this whole podcast just about the Star Wars fandom, in my opinion, because there's so many layers. There's so many layers. It's so deep, and all the hatred now, of course, is directed at Disney and the sequel trilogy in the Disney era.
Yeah.
You and me, for example. I'm a big fan of the sequel trilogy, all three of them. Yes, internet, all three of them.
I'm not
so much.
I found them disappointing, but like I said, I don't really talk about them much online just because I don't. Star Wars, let me give a bit of my description of Star Wars. I find Star Wars very important to geek culture in general. I think it's a bit overhyped as a franchise, but I certainly do appreciate it for what it's done. I like the original trilogy, of course. I like some of the spin-off stuff, a lot of the video games and stuff. Some of the comics I've seen are pretty cool. But I'm definitely like not a super fan of Star Wars. But even I do not like the sequel movies, I think they're pretty bad. I have seen the crap that people have said online about those, and like it is terrible. It is awful. Any of those people who like harassed the actors and the creators for making those movies, like, you all are pieces of shit for harassing those people. Like, those are human beings whose jobs it was to make a movie. Like, they have feelings and thoughts and emotions. They are not those fictional characters. And if you go out of your way to send them death threats and like call them garbage, like, fuck you. Fuck you. Get a life.
Yeah, you said it. I was going to go there, and you went there first.
Sorry,
so,
didn't mean to steal your thunder.
You stole my thunder. But yeah, they're still doing that, and let's go back in time with Star Wars.
Okay.
Do you like, even though you don't like the sequels, that's it for you? You just don't like them. Like, whatever. Who cares? You don't care that I love them. You don't think I'm stupid for loving them.
Yeah, I think you're stupid for other reasons.
Exactly. But do you know how many times Star Wars has, air quotes, been ruined? It's been ruined since 1977, essentially, when it came out. Like, first it was the Star Wars Holiday Special that came out after A New Hope, before Empire. Everybody knows how terrible that was. Mm-hmm. It's a meme in and of itself of how legendarily bad that is. That ruined Star Wars.
Mm-hmm.
Empire Strikes Back comes out, and there's a bit of revisionist history in that, like, people who defend the sequel trilogy, like, nobody liked Empire when it came out. That's not quite true. It got mostly good reviews, and most people liked it, but it didn't get quite the praise that the original did at the time.
Which is hilarious, because now it's like considered one of the best sequels ever.
It took a little bit for Empire to be like considered the god tier geek blockbuster movie. And then Return of the Jedi comes out. Most people like that too, but over time you hear, the Ewoks and da-da-da-da-da.
There is a sizable group of people in the Star Wars community who really don't like Jedi, and I think it's the weakest of the original trilogy, but like, I wouldn't consider it bad by any stretch. But, and again, this isn't even like part of the toxic fandom thing. You can think that movie's bad. You can disagree and say, hey, I don't like Return of the Jedi. I don't like any of these Star Wars movies. That's not the toxicity part. It's the attacking people for liking those things.
and this is just my perception. I could be totally wrong, talking on my ass about it, but I don't recall, because I've been engaged in Star Wars since I was a kid, I don't recall anybody really bad-mouthing Return of the Jedi until the special editions came out in 1997.
Oh, yeah.
1997, the special editions come out. Those ruined Star Wars because of all the changes that George Lucas made.
Mm-hmm.
Then 1999, Phantom Menace comes out. That ruined Star Wars because it disappointed. So Star Wars has been ruined I don't know how many times throughout the course of its history.
Yeah.
And
again, it's not having this opinion that this other stuff is bad. That's not the toxic part. The toxic part is when people are like sending George Lucas hate mail for ruining Star Wars. Like, that's the toxic element.
I don't know how, because you're a bit younger than me. I don't know how engaged you were online back when the prequels were coming out.
The first big prequel movie that I remember seeing was the third one. Like, the first and second one, episodes 1 and 2, when they came out, like, they had come out. I wasn't really paying attention to Star Wars at that point. I was too young. Then I heard about them, I watched the original trilogy, and then everybody was like, man, you gotta watch episode 3, it's so crazy, and then I watched it, and of course as a little kid, I'm like, oh cool, they got lightsabers, and they're jumping around, and everything, it's so awesome! And then when I got older, it's like, yeah, okay, this isn't as great as I remember it being.
Yeah. Sidestepping the subjective quality of the prequels for now, they were, all three of them, so universally disliked.
Yeah.
It became a cultural thing. Now there's like this revisionist history of people trying to pretend that like the prequels were always mostly liked and that the backlash is overblown and da-da-da-da-da. That's complete bullshit. I'm glad that fans have embraced them, but only insofar as if you embrace them and you're not an asshole about it. I genuinely think people forget just how hated the prequels were for so long.
That's an interesting point because, like, I think specifically with Star Wars, we've had a weird blending of fandom and anti-fandom together that maybe's creating the toxicity in it. Because we're talking about toxicity in fandoms, but, like, also toxicity against fandoms. Like, think about, this isn't really movie or game or anything related, but, like, think about Nickelback. Think about, like, how quick the hate for Nickelback came out. And if anybody, like, caught you listening to Nickelback, you'd be fucking, like, put down, shot down. People would talk shit about you for weeks if they caught you listening to Nickelback. But it's like, man, just let people like what they like. You know, it's fine if you don't like Nickelback. But, like, there are people who do. And I think with Star Wars in particular, like, we've got this weird blend of the two. Like, the people who hate the sequel trilogy are like a mixture of Star Wars and anti-Star Wars fans. They want to talk shit about Star Wars because they're mad about how it's different from the originals. It's not the same. It's not what I remember from my childhood. There's that group, but there's also the group that's always not really liked Star Wars, and they're like, hey, yeah, you see? Like, these movies have always been garbage and shit.
Yeah, there's definitely a blend of the two. With the prequels, they were coming out. They came out in a time where, you know, social media and stuff as it is, like, wasn't really around as ubiquitous.
Mm-hmm.
So the hatred for the prequels online was relegated to message boards and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But the disappointment was so widespread with those movies, it became like a pop culture thing. Like, there was a documentary, a full-length documentary made talking about examining the fandom's disappointment with the prequels and the special editions and their disenfranchisement with George Lucas. It's called The People versus George Lucas. So not only was there a complete documentary made about the backlash against the prequels, there was also a narrative film where the entire joke is basically the Phantom Menace sucked. It's called Fanboys, and to be fair, the movie's pretty harmless for the most part. It's just a kind of generic nerd comedy.
Yeah.
It involves a group of friends, huge Star Wars fans, whose friend is dying of cancer, and they're afraid he's not going to make it to see the premiere of The Phantom Menace, so they take him on a road trip to break into the Skywalker Ranch just to see a cut of the movie. And the literal end joke, the final joke, the final line of dialogue is as the character, spoilers by the way, for a movie that's got over 10 years old now, is, hey, what if it sucks? Roll credits. Like, the final joke of the movie is, nah, the prequels suck. And what's funny is that the people who are shitting on the sequels so hard now, and just like, it's not just, oh, you know, the prequels are not so bad, they're pretty good. It's not just that, it's the prequels are Shakespearean masterpieces, and they're misunderstood, and they lionize Anakin as like this tragic, like, great hero who wasn't a child murdering fascist ideology supporting monster. These same people that are shitting on the sequels now and acting like the prequels are like these complex Shakespearean masterpieces that people just don't understand. These are the same people that were calling for George Lucas's head for 15 years. These are the same people that forced George Lucas to sell Star Wars to Disney in the first goddamn place.
Yeah.
And now they're crying for his return. They're crying for him to come back and remake the sequels and retcon all the Disney canon and like they can't see their sheer hypocrisy and stupidity. They can't see it, and it's so ridiculous. And Star Wars fans harassing the actors is nothing new. The actor who played Jar Jar Binks, Ahmed Best.
Yeah.
The harassment he faced for that character was so strong, he nearly jumped off a bridge. He was literally on the bridge thinking about jumping.
Yeah.
It affected him so much.
Didn't the child actor for Anakin also get a bunch of stuff?
Yeah, Jake Lloyd, who played Anakin in Episode 1, he's just a kid. And he got so much shit after that movie came out from his schoolmates and just the shit he absorbed online from people calling him the worst actor ever, saying that he ruined the movie. He's still not recovered from, you know, all the shit he went through, all the bullying and harassment. He has mental health problems. He's had trouble with the law.
Actors are people. They're people who are paid a job to do. And they do that job, and then they go home and live lives. That's... I don't get how people can forget that. Like, if you dislike an actor's performance or the writing or whatever, fine, go to your message boards and bitch about it. But don't send death threats and tell people that they sucked. Like, fuck off. They're people.
Yeah, they don't care. They internalize their love and their obsession with this stuff so strongly that that's all they see. They don't see people. Daisy Ridley, who is Rey in the sequel trilogy, she quit social media because of the harassment. Kelly Marie Tran, who was Rose in the sequel trilogy, quit social media because of the racist, sexist harassment. John Boyega, who played Finn, didn't quit social media, but when the first teaser came out for The Force Awakens, and shock, oh no, there's a black stormtrooper, there was this whole, racist backlash about a black storm. It's like, it never ends. It never ends.
I will never understand this crowd that thinks that it's woke to include black people and women in anything. That's not woke. That's just, those people exist. They're real. That's
one of the big main backlashes from the Fandom Menace is, the sequel trilogy is woke SJW garbage because, women and minorities are in prominent roles. And their big target now is Kathleen Kennedy, who is the overseer, the producer of the franchise. And you've probably heard her name, but she's been around for decades. She is the one George Lucas specifically appointed to oversee the franchise. She has produced everybody's favorite movie since the 80s. She produced E.T., Jurassic Park, the Back to the Future trilogy, Schindler's List, The Goonies. I could go on and on and on about how many classic beloved movies she's produced.
Yeah.
But she is public enemy number one for the Fandom Menace. They're grifters is what they are. There are dozens of YouTube channels where all these people do is perpetuate and propagate complete and utter lies about drama happening behind the scenes of Lucasfilm, like, Kathleen Kennedy's on her way out. There's a civil war with the creative team behind Lucasfilm, and they're trying to push Kathleen Kennedy out. Let's get Kathleen Kennedy fired. There is no basis for any of this. No basis in fact at all. and they just keep spouting complete and utter bullshit, and people lap it up and they believe it. Like, I want to know what percentage of people that follow, because these people don't have like tiny followings. These YouTube channels have like hundreds of thousands of subscribers, and they get thousands and hundreds of thousands of views. And I'm like, after years of these people lying to you on social media just to fuel your hatred for Kathleen Kennedy, the sequel trilogy, and Disney, like, at what point do you stop and say, hey, none of this at all has come true? So, am I being taken for a ride here?
Tyler. When has people lying on the internet ever made people dislike them?
It blows my.
We had a president who continually lied on the internet, and he had 70 million people vote for him again.
It blows my fucking mind. It's like, and there are two people that work for Lucasfilm that the fandom just utterly the fandom menace utterly praises and think are just like God among men. Dave Filoni, who is the head honcho over the Clone Wars show, and also Rebels and the new show The Bad Batch. He's overseen pretty much all the animated shows that have come out, and he's also worked on The Mandalorian. And Jon Favreau, who is the showrunner for The Mandalorian, they're perpetuating this idea that Filoni and Favreau are the ones who are having the civil war with Kathleen Kennedy. And they have this hilarious thing where either Kathleen Kennedy is this evil, all-powerful Palpatine-esque overlord who controls everything and nobody has any power under her, or she's a glorified secretary who has no power. Like, they play both of those sides of the coin at the same time. God. And like, for everything under the Star Wars franchise under Disney that they like The Mandalorian or the last season of the Clone Wars or the Bad Batch that just came out, all embraced by the fandom menace and the fandom at large. Oh, she had nothing to do with it. Never mind the fact that she hired the people who produce the show, who write the show, who direct the show, who act. Never mind that she oversees all of that. That has any success that Disney Star Wars has nothing to do with her. But everything that people hate about Disney Star Wars, it's all her fault. It's just they don't see the complete just illogical bullshit that it is. And I've been talking for a lot, and you haven't gotten a word in edgewise.
No, I'm sorry. Fine. I do this to you like in every other episode. I've been editing all the episodes, and good God, you can't stop me when I get going. So it's fine for you to go for a while.
Yeah, it is a complete hellhole to dive into and try to engage in the Star Wars fandom. Yeah. And it's exhausting, man. Like, it's exhausting. I'm part of a subreddit called Saltier Than Crate, it's a parody site of it's a parody sub of another sub called Saltier Than Crate. They just spell crate differently. Yeah. The original Saltier Than Crate it's a hate sub. That's all it is. It's a hate sub where people can just shit on the prequels as much as they want, spout bigoted opinions, racist opinions, sexist opinions, and just conspiracy theories. That's what it is. Yeah. And another echo chamber. And the differently spelled Saltier Than Crate is like the call out sub, like, hey, look at how crazy these fucking people are. And it's a bastion of just like sanity in the Star Wars fandom, and it's not a perfect sub. There's still some echoey chamber kind of stuff that happens there too, but there's always going to be on the internet. It's the logical fandom sub on Reddit, and I can't count how many posts I've read where people are just like, people who really love the franchise, and just it means so much to them, where they come and they're like, you know what, guys, I'm just going to give up Star Wars. I can't take it anymore. Like, I just want to enjoy it and like engage with the fandom, but these people they won't let me. They're everywhere and they won't shut up, and the toxicity just won't end. So I'm just going to step away. And like, on one hand I want to be like, no, you can't let him win. You just got to learn how to put him in the proper context and block him out. But on the other hand, I can't blame anybody for stepping away, because like, who wants to deal with somebody ripping their enthusiasm for something away like that? Yeah. Like,
I've been very fortunate because my interactions with fandom in general typically take place in person, where I do cosplay and stuff. In person? Yeah, real world, I know, which is why I haven't done much fandom stuff over the past year because there's been no conventions to go to. You see a lot more of the positivity of fandom when you're doing it in person because there's, guidelines that people have to follow and people aren't as outrageously bold with their horrible shit in person than they are online. So like when you get to see people just interacting with each other as fans face to face and talking about the things they love and expressing their love through costume and performance and stuff, it's great, but there's always going to be an element of it online because they're bolstered to say all their hateful shit, to fight with people, to harass people, because there's more on anonymity online. They have those echo chambers that I've been talking about. It's just, I think fandom is strongest when like we have that face-to-face reminder that these are people, whereas online it's just kind of yelling into the ether.
Completely agree. As terrible as toxic fandom is online, and as omnipresent as it feels, that human interaction is definitely like.
I don't want to make it. I don't want to make it sound like I don't think the internet is a viable space for fandom. It absolutely is. It's the reason that fandom exists to the extent that it does today. But I think that you're always going to have more of the negativity online than you would in person. Like when people who make like webcomics, like fan art and stuff, like those things are wonderful. Their expression, even fanfic and stuff, as crazy and cringy as it can get. Like I think all of that's wonderful expressions of fandom, but like you're also always going to have the flip side of that is the hateful ass people who don't contribute anything, who don't make anything to celebrate their fandom. They just hate and hate and hate on the things that other people like.
That's just the psychology I don't get. Like it's always fun to sit around and kind of bullshit about something you didn't like. Yeah. We're gonna do that at some point with Thor Ragnarok.
We absolutely are.
We've been hitting at it every episode.
We're saving it for the live show. We will fight you off in droves at the live show. I will get a fire hose and be ready to hose you all down as I talk shit about your favorite Marvel movie.
But as fun as that is to do, sometimes like I literally cannot put myself in the headspace or try or even understand what people get out of perpetually hating on something so much as a hobby.
Yeah.
Like, how do you not just get sick of being negative all the time?
And when you conflate somebody's like entertainment, the things that they enjoy, with their personal character. Like, it's one thing to disagree. It's one thing to say, I hate the Star Wars sequels or prequels or even the original trilogy or whatever. It's fine if you hold that opinion. But if you hold that opinion and then somebody is like, well, I actually like the Star Wars sequels, and you're like, you're a piece of stupid trash who doesn't know anything about Star Wars, you're a dumb piece of shit, then it's like, what the fuck? They just have a different opinion than you on a piece of media. Unless that piece of media is literally like a Nazi propaganda thing, then like you shouldn't have that kind of problem. Unless there's like an ethical standpoint that's being made that like needs to be addressed, there should be no reason to hate on somebody for liking something that you dislike.
And I can't tell you how many smooth-brained like, If you like the sequels, then you're not a Star Wars fan, then you don't understand Star Wars. Because the sequel trilogy is not Star Wars. It's just, they love saying that there's only 6 films in the Skywalker saga. Mm-hmm. Like...
I also like this idea that, like, Star Wars is some, like, deep, super philosophical thing when it's, like, every single good versus evil trope to ever exist. Like, I get it, there are deeper stories within the Star Wars mythos, but for the most part, the original stories breaks down to light versus darkness.
Yeah.
Good guys versus evil empire. The same story we've been telling for hundreds or thousands of years.
And the good side of that is it's such a broad story, that's why it's affected people so deeply.
Yeah.
Like, George Lucas crafted A New Hope and then the original trilogy around the Joseph Campbell monomyth. Like,
yeah,
that's why it's so effective at what it is. But I don't want to begrudge anybody who sees deeper philosophical meaning in Star Wars, because it's there if you look for it. Any meaning you want to read into any art, there if you look. I look for it myself in Star Wars and I see it. But they literally treat it like a religion. It's a
Yeah.
part of their identity, and how they can get to that point unironically, where they're saying you're not a fan if you like this, or this isn't really Star Wars. Only this is Star Wars. Like
Yeah.
I've read comments from people that are like, I'm not going to show my kids the sequel trilogy, or I lament the fact that children today are growing up on the sequel trilogy. Like how? I can't even form a sentence to like.
It becomes a core part of their identity, and anything that they dislike about it, any changes made that they dislike about it, like they see as an attack on themselves. At that level that's the level of obsession that like fandom becomes toxic. Here's a great sort of sidetrack, sort of not. I think The Incredibles, the Pixar movie The Incredibles, does an excellent job of giving us two different instances of fandom, one positive and one toxic. The positive is Edna Mode. We have a character who is like, she loves superheroes, she compares them to gods, but like she also recognizes her own value and her own ability to contribute and how to celebrate these superheroes in like creating the costumes and helping them to do their jobs. She takes part in the community, in the superhero community, in her own form, in a way that makes it even better and makes it like more wonderful to behold. And then on the toxic side, you get the villain Syndrome, who is so obsessed with the superhero community, so obsessed that he's like, I will be the sidekick to Mr. Incredible, the greatest hero ever, because I want to be, even though I'm recklessly endangering the lives of multiple people in doing so. And then when he finally gets shut down by his hero, he's like, no, I will be the greatest hero ever by killing all the heroes and everything. It's like, he sees this attack on he sees somebody pointing out his flaws and his obsession as an attack, and then he goes on to attack everyone else around him. He gets that persecution complex of a toxic fan. And I think that's just like the perfect showing of like how fandom, when it becomes something that has to define who you are, that's when it becomes toxic. When you're not allowing it to help you develop yourself, but rather it develops you, that's when it becomes toxic.
And that gets into the entitlement aspect of it. Okay, how do I broach this? People who form their identities around this, who take it too seriously.
Yeah.
The sense of entitlement they feel it's so insecure. Yeah. Because let's just keep riding Star Wars because it's what we've been talking about, but this applies to so many other things. If there's a new entry in a franchise, a reboot, a sequel, something that is going to naturally try to appeal to a new generation, they can't handle it because it's, hey, wait a second, I've been here since I was a kid. How dare you make something that's not specifically designed to cater specifically to me?
Yeah.
Like, it's my thing. I should have it the way I want it. It shouldn't appeal to those people over there. They haven't loved it like I have. They haven't been around. It's mine.
Yeah.
And that's Star Wars, that's Marvel, that's DC, that's Star Trek, that's anime.
Saw that with the new Ninja Turtles series too, the Rise of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. People fucking hated on that show when they saw, oh my god, Raph's the leader, you've ruined Ninja Turtles. It's like, fuck off, try it, watch the show. It's my favorite Ninja Turtles series now. Like, I genuinely love Rise of the Ninja Turtles, but like, people immediately hated on it and like started it's okay. You're like I've been saying, it's totally fine for you to not like Rise of the Ninja Turtles or whatever, but like they immediately started like spamming like review websites and stuff, like this is garbage, all these changes are garbage, like before even watching the show, before it was even released. They just saw the promo material and instantly spammed like negative reviews for it.
Yep, and it also has to do with the rise in, geek chic, where like once niche interests and franchises and stuff, they were sort of underground. Now that being a geek and embracing nerdy, geeky, pop culture-y things is like the cool thing, then all of a sudden it doesn't feel special to these people anymore. Like, yeah,
now they have to prove that they're better than these fake casual fans. That's where the gatekeeping comes in.
Like, I was bullied in the 80s for reading comic books, and now people like comic books? What's this bullshit? Fake fans. Like, it belongs to me.
It sucks so hard because, like, we should be celebrating that more people like the things we do. The whole reason that Marvel as a company still exists today is because Disney bought it out and started making movies out of it. Like, Marvel about went bankrupt in, like, the mid and late 90s. Like, they were going to go out of business. We wouldn't have any more stories about Spider-Man or Captain America or the Hulk or anybody if it weren't for, like, the fact that the MCU and the Spider-Man trilogy, the Raimi trilogy, and X-Men movies took off. All of these things. Like, the fact that people like the things you like is a good thing. It means you get more of the thing you like. And if you don't like the thing if you don't like the new version of the thing you like, go back and watch the old version of the thing you already like. It's still there.
Exactly. That's another thing. Like, oh, this sequel to this thing ruined it. And
no,
like
it's
that's
still
not how
there.
It works. Like, take Jurassic Park, for example. I absolutely cherish the Jurassic Park franchise. Uh-huh. It's considered by people my age, my generation, the Star Wars of that generation.
Mm-hmm.
And that's completely accurate, because for a while, Jurassic Park was the biggest movie ever made. I think until Titanic, if I'm not mistaken. And it has a huge fan base to this day. It might not be as pervasive as something like a Star Wars or Marvel, but the Jurassic Park fan base is a sizable fan base in our zeitgeist. And I love it. Absolutely love it. I haven't been hyped for many movies in my life as I was hyped for the first Jurassic World. And I really liked it. A lot of people didn't, but it was mostly well received. But then Fallen Kingdom came around. Now, Fallen Kingdom, I was almost as hyped for. I thought it looked freaking amazing. And I saw it, and I hated it. It was terrible. Until then, Jurassic Park 3 was easily the worst thing in the franchise.
Uh-huh.
And I don't know what's worse. Jurassic Park 3 or Fallen Kingdom. I honestly can't decide.
But I haven't seen Fallen Kingdom, but surely it's worse, because at least Jurassic Park 3 has a dream sequence where he sees a velociraptor in a plane, and the velociraptor looks at him and goes, "Ellen!"
Yeah, that's stupid. That's very stupid. But that's just a dream sequence. Fallen Kingdom is built on ludicrously dumb plot contrivances and plot developments. But I will say this before I get onto my wider point. Fallen Kingdom is a much better made movie technically than Jurassic Park 3.
Uh-huh.
But I think Jurassic Park 3 might have the upper hand in that it's a more simple story than Fallen Kingdom, but I'm going off on a tangent.
Yeah, what's the toxic element of this?
My point is, as much as I hate Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom, like, that's it. I just don't like the movie. I don't think it ruined the Jurassic Park franchise. Like, I could still go back and watch the movies I like and enjoy them just as much. Fallen Kingdom takes up no space in my brain, even though I don't like it. Because why would I care to ruminate on a thing I don't like when I can enjoy what I do like?
Yeah.
That's the point. That's the point of all of this. Just enjoy what you like and disregard what you don't. If I let a sequel, a bad sequel to something I like, ruin a thing for me, I wouldn't like a lot of things. Because there's a lot of bad sequels out there.
Or even if you're one of those people who, like, enjoys hating on something, if you, like, really like talking shit about something that you saw that you didn't enjoy or played or whatever, that alone is not necessarily toxic. But when you turn it into, I'm going to shit on other people who like things, like, if somebody came up to me and said, "Oh man, I really love Thor Ragnarok, it's my favorite movie," I wouldn't be like, "You're a piece of fucking dumb shit ass bull, go suck a fuck," like, I wouldn't do that. I'd be like, "Okay, great, I'm happy for you." That would be the end of the discussion. I wouldn't, like, insult this person's character for liking that movie, you know? Because who gives a shit?
Because there's no reason to.
No!
Because in that specific instance of Thor Ragnarok, us, Isaac and Tyler, we're in the extreme minority. Everybody loves that movie. we're the weirdos for not liking it.
Yeah.
Like, who are we to say, you know,
we're special.
Everybody just gets it wrong.
We're special. Know? We're the ones. You all are dumb for liking it. We hate you for liking it.
We may not understand why it's so popular, but we respect why it is, because it speaks to people in a way it doesn't speak to us.
Yeah.
And that's all that's it. Who cares?
I will never shit on somebody for liking something unless I have a moral objection to it. There has to be an actual ethical reason for me to, like, not agree with them liking it. Like, if they're like, hey, this movie about how Mexicans are all going to take our jobs and kill us all is really good, then I'll be like, maybe not that one. Maybe we need to have a discussion about that one.
Maybe prioritize your outlook on life with that one.
You mentioned briefly how earlier when we were talking about how actors and creators and stuff will get threats, specifically like racist and homophobic comments and stuff online. That's absolutely still prominent. I think that's absolutely still like a huge issue in fandom in general. But I think there's also like the opposite problem. Like I was talking about earlier with the Steven Universe community, there's like this super far left-leaning group of hyper-woke people who are like, no, men are awful, men can't watch Steven Universe, straight men can't watch Steven Universe, this is only for, like, LGBT members and stuff. There was an instance of a fan artist who was drawing characters skinnier than they were in the show, and they got death threats and hate mail and stuff from people, saying that they were fat-shaming and everything. And it got so bad that person tried to commit suicide.
Didn't they actually commit? Didn't they actually?
They attempted
in their
suicide. They attempted to commit suicide, and unless they did it again, I haven't seen it. But they like tried to take a bunch of pills and kill themselves, and then somebody found them, or somebody alerted the police before they died. There may have been another separate instance of somebody being bullied, but the big one that I'm thinking of, I think they survived. But
yeah,
that's an instance where like people who might have an ethical point, like a somewhat stable framework of like morals to stand on, completely butcher it. Like, on the one hand, we want to see proper diversity and proper representation in shows and everything, but, like, if somebody's just drawing a character skinny, that's not something to attack a person over. That's just them interpreting the show a different way. That happens with everything. There's so much... people, every time... a fan artist or a fanfic writer or anybody takes something from a show, they change it a little to show a different way of looking at it. You can't just assault a person online because they drew a character skinnier than they were. And even if that was like a morally that's not even a morally defensible position, because like it's not like, oh, I drew her in blackface or something. It's just, here's a skinnier version of this character. Like what the fuck? Why would you attack a person over that?
Yeah, that falls into the gatekeeping aspects.
And it's not even like there was something on like a tagline. It's like, I fixed this character. I made her better now that she's skinny. It was just like, here's a picture of this character that I like. I drew her this way. And then everybody just jumped on her for no reason. And then when the people from the series came in to defend her, like a ton of Steven Universe fans were like, I can't believe that these people are attacking us for this. Like, I can't believe that we stood up for Steven Universe and now we're being attacked for doing the right thing. It's like, oh, fuck off. You made a girl try to kill herself. That's not right.
Yeah, if your self-awareness is so shot that you don't understand how you're bullying and harassing and threatening a person isn't the woke thing to do, then
if you place the value,
the lack of empathy and remorse of those people,
it's insane.
It like, here you are propping up a show for being progressive.
Yeah.
To the point where you turn into a despicable bully.
Where you place the value of a drawing over a human life.
you don't have the right to call yourself progressive minded if you're going to act that way and have no remorse for what your actions lead to. I'm sorry, I'm gatekeeping that.
So
Like, you don't have a right to claim that you're progressive minded if you're going to act that way.
It's
You
so
just don't.
sick. I can't believe that kind of shit happens, because, like, did you listen to any of the... Here's another point I want to get to. Like, so much of this toxic fandom stuff is like a betrayal of the themes and messages of the series that they supposedly love. Like, Steven Universe is a series about love and acceptance to the point where it has almost some ethical problems with how far it takes elements of tolerance in the series. But, like, it's never been a show about attacking people because they, like, have different interpretations of something than you do. It's the exact opposite. Like, did you watch the series? Literal dictators in that series get redemption arcs, and you're going to attack a girl because she drew a character skinny? Like,
yeah, it would be hilarious if it didn't have such harsh real world consequences.
Yes, it just sucks so much that you miss the point of these series, the messages that they're trying to get across. Another big one, go back to Rick and Morty. All these super fans of Rick and Morty who are like, oh, Rick Sanchez, I'm just like Rick, I'm smarter than everybody else. Like, do you watch Rick and Morty? He's miserable. He's an asshole. Everyone hates him. He's the biggest dick in the universe. You're not supposed to like him. And similar topics, Bojack Horseman, a big sect of people are like, I'm so much like Bojack. I see that. He's a fucking monster. Like, you're not picking up on what these shows are trying to tell you about these people, about what messages they're trying to convey. You just see, oh, this guy is the main character. Oh, this guy is like so much better than everybody. It's like, pay attention to the themes. What is it the show trying to say? And like, I don't know how people can miss that so much and call themselves fans.
It's I call it main character bias. There's a difference between finding aspects of troubled and morally gray and ambiguous characters relatable, but that's always up to a point. Like, there are aspects to Bojack's personality as a character that I can find relatable, but not to the point where like, oh, Bojack's me, or I'm Bojack, because I'm not Bojack. I'm not a narcissistic, self-centered, abusing, alcoholic, drug addict, for one thing.
Who has sex with a minor and also kills a minor by going on a drug-addled rampage.
The relation I feel to morally gray characters like Bojack or Don Draper from Mad Men or somebody like Rick, I don't say I relate to Rick, I'm just in general, but I can kind of relate to aspects of Bojack's personality, but that's in a broad sense, in how he feels about things, not who he is as a person, if that makes... You see what I'm saying there? Like,
yes, and that's good. The show should be doing that because it makes you think and reflect on those things. You know?
People don't understand that.
They celebrate it instead. That's when it becomes toxic. When you see a toxic character in a show and you see elements in that character that you can relate to yourself, you should think about yourself. You should think, oh man, maybe there's negative things in me that I need to work on. When you see a toxic character in a show and you say, oh man, that's just like me, that's not a good thing. You shouldn't be celebrating it. It should make you reconsider your life choices.
Yeah, it's the Breaking Bad effect. I don't think you've ever watched Breaking Bad.
Way to sell me out to the internet. I'll get to it, internet.
Best you'll ever get to it. Come over and we can watch my Blu-ray collection.
Haven't watched Game of Thrones either. I read the books.
But Breaking Bad has the same problem like Bojack and Rick and Morty have. The main character, Walter White, since he's the main character, the audience latches onto that. The whole arc, I'm sure this isn't a spoiler, mild-mannered, kind of...
Teacher gets cancer, starts selling drugs.
Yeah. Kind of frumpy, just guy, gets cancer, becomes a drug kingpin selling meth. And the whole show is this transformation of this mild-mannered guy who you wouldn't look twice at if you pass them on the street, turning into this brutal, uncompromising son of a bitch who puts his power and his desires over anything else. And people, because he's the main character, latch onto him to a degree where they absolutely despised his wife, named Skylar. And to be fair, Skylar is also a very, very character. But
sorry, you cut out there. What'd you say?
She's a very flawed character. She's a very flawed person.
Okay.
But people hated her to such a degree where, like, of course, the threats, the harassment, the sexist nonsense came about because as her character, she was the wall. She was the opposition. She was the one calling him out and, taking him up to task. And because she played that role, people hated her to such a degree that, like, the actress had to write an op-ed just kind of like dissecting the reaction to her character and why she found it so disturbing. They went so far as to be like, she's such a bitch, she's so evil, she's so terrible, why can't she leave Walt alone and accept what he's doing? It's this man is manufacturing and selling drugs. He is endangering his life, his family's life. He has killed people. Through his actions, he has gotten people killed. And you just want his wife to shut up and accept it because he says he's doing it for them? He's not selling drugs and being a drug kingpin for them. Maybe that's what he started to do in the beginning because he was desperate. But it's quite clear as the show goes on that all went out the window once he got a taste of power. It's not about his family anymore. It's about how he feels. It's about mattering. It's about being powerful. And just, I don't know where I was going with this. Just, she's the character. Yeah. The character of Skylar and the character of Walter White are just another example of main character bias, where people don't analyze the problems of a main character that are supposed to be problems, that are written to be problems.
Yes.
Because they like them so much.
It's fucked. It's fucked. You said you had another wormhole you wanted to go down.
Yeah, I went down a mini one there with Breaking Bad. The DC Cinematic Universe.
Oh, I had when I want to go ahead and start with yours. But I do have something I want to talk about with DC with you.
Gotcha. The as it's dubbed, the DC Extended Universe. Mm-hmm. How do I make this a little bit more succinct? Okay, the Snyder Cut. When the theatrical version of Justice League came out, I was on board with the release the Snyder Cut hashtag movement from the very beginning. Mm-hmm. Because from the very beginning, it was a mostly positive movement.
Yeah.
There were toxic elements, of course, but they were fairly muted compared to just the support for Zack Snyder himself and the film. But there was a lot of good that came out of the fandom for that initial movement. They raised hundreds of thousands of dollars for suicide prevention because one of the catalysts of why he left the movie was because his adopted daughter committed suicide.
Yeah.
So I was on board for it for years. It was a 3-year long campaign.
Yeah.
And then when it was announced that, oh my God, they're gonna do it. They're gonna release the Snyder Cut. We did it. Like, there was this huge just like sense of relief and accomplishment. Yeah, the fandom, fandom did something positive, and we got a positive out.
Yeah.
But they couldn't leave well enough alone.
Uh-oh.
Like, instead of basking in the victory of it, as soon as the movie came out, it turned into, okay, what can you give us now? Restore the Snyderverse.
Enter the Snyderverse.
The Snyder Cut couldn't be out for a day until another hash completely took over, which was restore the Snyderverse. And that in and of itself isn't the bad thing. It goes back to the entitlement.
Well, here's what I wanted to talk to you about, because there's a very similar problem with the Persona 5 fandom. Okay. Specifically, the game was never released on the Nintendo Switch, and there's a lot of Switch players who want to play the game because they're fans of older Persona games or because they've heard that this game is great, and they've just absolutely bombarded the company, Atlas, to release this on the Switch, to the point where a bunch of Western audience members spammed a Japanese-only poll about what they would like to see with the Persona series moving forward, and just like on, you can't go into any discussion about Persona Online without it becoming just release the Nintendo Switch version, release the Switch port. Like, that's all it is, to the point where everybody points to it and like, yeah, this is, like, they're just harassing the creators at this point. It's toxic as hell. So I wanted to talk to you about that in comparison to the push for the Snyder Cut of the Justice League, because I see some parallels there. I don't know enough about the release of the Snyder Cut to really say if there was that sort of toxic element where, like, they're forcing the creators to make something that, like, the creators don't necessarily want to, but I wanted to just bring that up because that sort of, like, fan entitlement to something, you know, I see sort of a parallel there where they're pushing for something that doesn't necessarily exist.
Yeah, what you described, that's definitely a parallel. With the Snyder Cut, when we watched it the other weekend, I kind of explained it to you. The Zack Snyder's version of Justice League was the original version.
Yeah.
It's what he was making when he stepped away, and it was taken over by Warner Brothers and Joss Whedon. He wanted to release his version, so that whole thing wasn't the problem. The problem came after the movie came out. What #restore the Snyderverse means is that, hey, the Snyder Cut came out, the fans are happy with it, it has a far better reception than the original version, or not the original version, the theatrical version. So WB, get on it and continue the original plans of his trilogy for Justice League. And that in and of itself isn't the problem. It's how they're going about it. They're spamming producers and creators and other hashtags with restore the Snyder Cut. Restore the Snyderverse. Restore the Snyder. Somebody involved with WB made a comment about the Asian hate crimes that have been happening recently. This was about a month or so back already, and this completely unrelated to anything Snyder or DC tweet got just bombarded with continue the Snyderverse hashtags.
That's how the Persona fandom is too.
And they're still doing it over a month after the movie came out. Have you heard that the Discovery Network has been absorbed by like Warner Media? Have you heard that?
No, now I have.
Well, it has, and like the Discovery Network or whatever the company is now, like, happy birthday to a beluga whale, and like, what was bombarded in the comments?
Oh boy!
Restore the Snyderverse, and it's just like they couldn't just accept that they won. Like, they couldn't be happy that this unprecedented moment in fandom, they got something that they asked for.
Yeah.
Like more than what they asked for, really.
Go ahead.
They're just completely ungrateful for it, and like, they justify their take on, oh no, like, there's nothing wrong with, wanting WB because they fucked up so bad in the past to just like make things right, and I'm like, you just don't get it. Like, you don't understand. Like, that's not how this works. That's not how this works at all. Warner Brothers made it clear, and it wasn't even Warner Brothers that made the Snyder Cut possible. It was the parent company, Warner Media. They made it clear that, like, the Snyder Cut was a once and done thing. It was going to be this boon to the fandom
because they had most of it, and the director wanted it to come out.
Yeah, the head of Warner Media said, "Hey, this has been going on for so long. There's a real call for it. It could be successful. It could make us some money. Let's give it to him." That was all that it was ever going to be. Now they're acting like, they're entitled for all the rest of it.
Yeah. Despite
the plans for the franchise moving away from that and having been away from that for a long time now. Like, I get it. Like, I'm disappointed that the DC Extended Universe isn't going the way it originally was supposed to. By now, we were supposed to have a Green Lantern movie. The Flash movie was already supposed to come out. A Cyborg movie was already supposed to come out. The second Justice League movie was already supposed to come out. The original plans all fell through because, to be real, because of WB's fuck-ups in the past. But that again, that's the past. Like, be upset about that. Like, lament that. Like, oh, that sucks. That's not going to happen. But, like, embrace the future.
Yeah.
There's so much to look forward to with DC coming out now. We have a new Batman movie coming out. Shazam 2 is in production. Black Adam is in production. All kinds of new shows are in production. A Batgirl movie was announced. The Blue Beetle movie. There's so many things. Aquaman 2. The Suicide Squad is coming out in August. There's still all this stuff to look forward to. But because it's not what you particularly want them to do, you feel entitled to act like a spoiled brat about it. Like,
and here's the thing: there's a totally acceptable outlet for that desire to see something made. Make it
exactly.
Make it. You know, like, look at all these fanfic writers and all these fan artists and fan comic makers and stuff. They see, like, stuff from these series and they're like, I didn't necessarily like this part, or, oh man, I wish they kept going with this. And they use their love for the fandom and they make more things to love. Like, they turn that into a positive thing to enjoy more of, instead of just demanding that the creators make more even if they don't want to. There's a positive way to deal with these kind of things, and like,
exactly.
they just don't. They don't get it. Like, if you're so absorbed into seeing this story, this world continue, write yourself up a script, you know? Throw it online, see what people think. Put together a fan film version of it. Like, it's not going to be a multi-billion-dollar official licensed version of it by any means, but, like, you'll find so much more fulfillment in putting that passion into a project, into something you love, than you would ever get than just spamming, like, forums and social media and stuff with, give me more of this thing! Give it to me! I demand it!
The DC fandom is one of the most self-martyred fandoms I've ever been a part of. They're constantly playing the victim. They play the beaten dog, the beaten puppy, like, we never get what we want. Poor us, we've been so screwed. They have a persecution complex.
Yeah.
And as I said, I'm a Zack Snyder fan, but I can't enjoy his movies because his fans and the fandom at large are so fucking annoying. I just wanted to go to the subreddit, but that couldn't last more than a goddamn half a day without the entire sub being flooded with just, like, shit posts and memes and people bitching about Warner Brothers. And to be fair, there are genuine criticisms to be made about how they've handled the franchise.
Yeah.
There are. That's valid.
Debate, argument, criticism, these things are valid. Those are totally fine. But when it becomes all that you do, you gotta have more to a personality to yourself. Don't be defined by your hatred of something.
Anytime a new DC property is announced, they can make that, but they can't give us Man of Steel 2 and Justice 2 and 3. Like, who asked for a Blue Beetle movie? And it's like, that's another thing. That's another thing I hated, that you hear that everywhere. Like, who asked? It's not about asking, like, who wanted X. That's not how it works. It's, these studios make things that they think are going to make the money that they think are viable.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's a bummer that we didn't get Man of Steel 2, but, like, Blue Beetle getting a movie doesn't mean that Man of Steel 2 was taken away. Like,
yeah,
that's not going to happen regardless.
It also assumes that, like, there aren't, just because you don't like something, that there aren't any fans of that thing. You know, it's this automatic assumption, like, Blue Beetle fucking sucks, nobody likes Blue Beetle, give us more Superman. It's like, Blue Beetle has fans. Like, he's got his own running comic.
Blue Beetle fucking rocks. I love Blue Beetle. Like,
you can like multiple things. How about that?
And it's this perception of the popularity of a character that they think should dictate the direction of a franchise. Like, because Superman's one of the most recognizable comic book characters ever.
Yeah.
On the surface, it stands to reason. Like, how come his franchise isn't, like, on its third or fourth movie, right? And on the surface, yeah, why not? Why haven't they made another solo Superman movie? I'm not a studio head. I'm not a producer. I don't know. Maybe it's because, they think, like, maybe it's not going to make us the money that we want to. And they also see that, hey, other lesser-known properties have become huge in other franchises.
Mm-hmm.
We can try that with some of our own.
And because they keep getting so much hate from people about these things.
Nobody asked for a Guardians of the Galaxy movie.
No, they did not.
Look what the fuck happened there. They're some of the biggest movies ever.
Yeah.
Like, just because a thing isn't well known, it doesn't mean it's not a valuable property to explore.
Yeah, you could almost say it's original. It's something we haven't done to death yet. Would you prefer Spider-Man 9? Or would you like a movie about a different character? How about a Moon Knight movie? Like,
well, Moon Knight's getting a show.
Hell yeah. Hell yeah. Ready for that and She-Hulk.
Oscar Isaac is cast as Moon Knight.
Nice.
So that's going to be cool.
Yeah, just this endless cycle of entitlement.
No, I just hate it, and it makes enjoying things hard.
Yeah.
Stop it. Just stop it.
We talked about this a little bit with like Rick and Bojack Horseman and stuff. I think a big element of toxic fandom also comes when fans obsess over characters specifically, over a big one specifically in the anime community, and I'm thinking even more specifically in My Hero Academia recently, is shipping. Shipping is such an element of toxic fandom because people will just... It's one thing to be like, oh, I think these two characters should be canon because they've got really interesting character dynamics and whatnot. I think they should be together in the show. Like, yeah, okay, ship whoever you want. But when it becomes to the point where they're sending, like, threats and demands to the creators to be like, you better put these two characters together or I'm going to, like, come to your house or I am going to do nothing but shit talk this series, that's bullshit. And you see, I've seen a lot of it from Hero Aka. A lot of it actually comes down to, and I hate to talk about it this way, it's straight bashing. Like, I hate to pull, like, the persecuted straight man complex. I'm not straight myself, but, like, I hate to go down that route. But, like, so many people in the Hero Aka community want to see these gay ships. They want to see these characters be homosexual, and the creator just has, like, heterosexual pairings that he wants because they're his characters and he wrote them that way, and people fucking hate him over it because he won't ship these two male characters together, or these two female characters together. They just attack him, they attack each other, they attack anybody who ships, like, the, like, heterosexual pairings, and it's just like, I get it, we, like, LGBT community, we want more representation in the media, but this isn't the way to go about it. Demanding it from a creator of a series and attacking people when they don't agree with your ships is not the way to get more proper representation. It's bullshit.
Yeah, I don't have much experience in dealing with fandoms that ship, except for Star Wars, of course.
Yeah, the sequel trilogy got a bunch of shit with that too.
The Raylos are they're an interesting bunch. Let's just say that. Again, the shipping entitlement. Yeah. It's back to entitlement. There's a difference between you watching a thing or reading a thing and coming up with your own fun sort of like theories and ships and all that.
Right,
kind of, like
fanfic. Anybody can do it. Yeah, it's free.
Yeah, fandoms and they take their headcanon and they just assume that their headcanon
is canon.
Is canon and what should be codified as canon, even when there's not necessarily any actual evidence to support it.
Yeah.
Like, your interpretation of something is not a fact. No. Like, how do you not understand that? How could you... Oh, I ship this and that character. And, cool. But, like, what you're reading into it doesn't necessarily mean that it's happening.
And even if you want to interpret it that way, you're not the creator. It's not yours.
Exactly.
Like even if you want to make it yours, do some goddamn fanfic. Like, it's free. You can do it online. Just make it. Just make it yourself instead of attacking people who see things differently than you. Like, oh my god, it's so easy to just write some shit online.
And to treat it like a massive fault or flaw or like middle finger of the show or movie itself and the creator for not somehow being able to read your mind.
Yeah.
And implement what you personally want, to treat that as like a personal affront or a massive flaw within the show itself it's psychotic. It's absolutely... There's so many, like, with comic books and TV shows and movies, like, that I've comments that I've read, like, the latest episode of so-and-so didn't do this and this and this and this and this. And what they're listing is just a bunch of headcanon that they made up that has no actual, like, support or evidence within the show itself. and they hold that against the show for not coming true. And it's like, you just pulled that out of your ass. Yeah. That's a you thing. That's not what the show was doing. That's not what they said it was. That's not where they hinted it was going.
You were never promised this.
You were never promised this. Like,
I hate it so much.
The myriad ways in which fans can get it all twisted and blows my mind.
Like, I don't want it to make it sound like, oh, I think all shipping's bad. It's not. Again, if you want to ship, just ship your characters. Draw your fan art. Write your fanfics. It's perfectly fine. Like, you don't have to follow the shows or the movies or the games canon. Put whoever you want together. That's fine. But, like, you don't attack a creator over this. You don't fight with people over it. And I do mean fight. It's one thing to, like, debate, I think these characters would be better together than those characters. It's another thing to be like, you are a homophobic piece of trash for not agreeing with my canon. And it's like, that's... just fucking enjoy things, please.
Yes.
If you don't like the way it is, you can make it your own little side version of it. You're not forced to keep watching this thing or playing this thing or whatever. Like, nobody's holding a gun to your head and saying, keep reading My Hero Academia, or you have to accept that this ship is like, just enjoy it, for fuck's sake.
Like, yeah,
and if you don't leave,
it's not personal. It's not personal.
If you don't like it anymore, just leave. My God,
they take it so personally. They take it. I didn't like Star Wars Episode 9. Like, they did this to me.
Yeah.
I didn't like the latest arc of this shonen anime. They did this to me.
Yeah.
Like, no, they didn't do this to you. They told the story in the way they wanted to tell it, and you didn't like it, and that's fine. But it's not personal. It's not personal.
It's so sad because I really do think that these. I studied this kind of stuff in college. Like, I was an English major. I was a communications and storytelling major when I got my master's. I know the value of a good story. I know the impact that it can have on us as individuals, that it can have on us as a culture, as society. I know how important these things are to developing who we are and expressing who we are. But you cannot define yourself by a single story. You just can't. It will destroy your mental health, and it will make you a terror on everyone around you. You have to acknowledge that these stories, these pieces of fiction and fantasy, they are made to be applied to your real life, to make you consider how your real life functions, not to be worshipped as idols upon an altar. They're not gods, they're metaphors for reality. You have to accept that, or you're not going to function as a person in a society. We live in a society!
Oh, where's Joker when you need him?
Oh, boy. Bet there was plenty of people who saw Joker and was like, oh, man, he's alright. He's a good guy.
Yeah. Another thing that I can't enjoy because people fucking get the wrong goddamn message from it. Ugh.
Like, don't get me wrong, he's painted very sympathetically. That's the point. You're supposed to see how society broke him to the point of becoming a murderous asshole. But he's still a murderous asshole.
Yeah. By the end of it, you're not supposed to be on his side anymore. That's the point.
You're supposed to see the tragedy of him.
By the time he's stabbing people in the neck, shooting people on live television, that's where you're supposed to say, oh, he's too far gone. He went too far.
Yeah.
That's how stories work.
Yeah, they have messages. They tell you things. They make points. Oh, God.
And I hate it when the wrong group of people get the wrong message from something, and they just... There's a very alt-righty...
Like that one thing that we saw in the fucking Falcon and Winter Soldier, that one review that was like, I'm glad it has a strong conservative message. America's great. And it's like, what the fuck show did you watch?
Yeah, there's an unfortunate sort of alt-righty, red-pilly fandom around Joker. To be fair, not to them specifically, but the media just completely manufactured outrage about that movie for no reason.
Yeah.
I don't know if you remember it or were aware of it, but when it was coming out, the media and entertainment journalists just kind of decided to make Joker sort of like this pre-controversy before it even came out. Like,
Yeah.
why do you think this movie is going to inspire mass shooters and incel violence? Like,
Yeah.
this isn't a new story. A story of a person descending into madness because of disenfranchisement is a tale as old as time. Like, why is this movie all of a sudden the hill to die on? Like, and when that didn't happen, when nobody saw Joker and said, you know what, I'm gonna do a murder. That didn't happen. So like there was that fake outrage, and it became like this sort of like, oh, Joker, it's like it's so sympathetic to men who feel, you know, lost in society and like pushed aside and this and that and this and that. And it's like, no, he's not supposed to be an analog for the white male identity or male identity. He could be anybody. That's the point.
He's a mentally ill loner.
Just because the character happens to be a white dude doesn't mean that it's a stand-in for white men.
Yeah.
You know, like it could have been anybody. That's the whole point. If
your big takeaway from the movie Joker is that he was persecuted for being a white man, you're a fucking idiot. His problems with society stem from his like social class, his like socioeconomic class, and his mental illness. Those are the core themes of those movies. The whole movie is about his mental illness and his socioeconomic class. Like, that's why he's an outcast. That's why he gets shunned by society. It's not the fact that he's a white dude.
When the Oscar, because it got some Oscar attention, and when the movie Parasite, which is a South Korean movie, when that won Best Picture and not Joker, like this is just SJW pandering. Of course, they picked like the foreign movie with like the South Korean people in it, people of color.
Yes.
Like they won't give it to the
Oscars have been known so much for picking foreign films and non-white people in their best actors and best movie roles. They're historically known for that.
What's hilarious is that these chuds that were bitching about Joker not getting wins at the Oscar and the movie Parasite getting the win over it, they're like, of course they give it to some pretentious foreign movie. Joker's actually about something. It's about like, you know, class divide and mental societal structure, and it's like, motherfuckers, that's exactly what Parasite is about. Parasite is a specific satire and commentary on class structure. That's what the movie's about. But you freaking chuds are too just preoccupied in your movie that you relate to so much. Because why would you? You just want to make yourself look like an ass. That's what you're doing. It's like,
Another element of connecting too strongly with characters. This is like the farthest end of it, the like most extreme, is where people will actually like full-on fall in love with characters, with fictional characters. They develop these like ultimate parasocial relationships where they're like, I would die for the one I'm thinking about in particular, and it's so fucked up, is that My Little Pony. You heard about the My Little Pony thing, right? The mass shooting.
Wait, what? When was this?
I think it was earlier this year or maybe late last year. I actually have the article. I can pull it up. The guy's name was Brandon Scott, and yeah, this 19-year-old, he went out and shot up a FedEx facility.
That was the... Okay, yeah.
He was making a bunch of posts online about, like, he was like a very well-known brony, which is the fans of the My Little Pony community. He made a bunch of videos online, and one of them was like, I hope that I get to be with Applejack in the afterlife. My life has no meaning without it. He literally was like, I cannot live without this fictional cartoon horse, and then he goes and shoots up a whole FedEx facility. And granted, the My Little Pony community has obviously been like, fuck this guy, he doesn't represent us. Like, but like that's an example of an individual fan completely losing their mind and going through this like toxic behavior of like, I am in love with a fictional character. Ugh.
Not even a humanoid fictional character.
How do you break that much? What happened to you to break you to the point where you are in love with a fictional horse and you will kill people over it? Like,
it's beyond me, man. I mean,
what world are we living in? God damn it!
The brony community is the reason why I didn't keep watching My Little Pony, My Friendship's Magic.
We watched a few episodes. I thought it was a cute and nice little show. It was fun.
I thought it, for what I saw, I thought it was fun and well made.
There was a funny joke where, like, the really nice one, like Fluttershy, the yellow one, was like, oh, she had like a deep voice when they all got cursed or something. It was just like a cute little moment. Like, there were fun things in that show, and then you look online and you're like, oh no, oh no.
Fandoms don't scare me off. They never do. Like, as much as I am hating the Star Wars fandom right now, like, they're not scaring me off. As much as I'm hating the DC fandom right now, I'm still in it. But the My Little Pony fandom, as soon as, like, I caught whiff of the shit that was going on in there, it churned my stomach so much. I'm just like, I don't want to keep watching this, even in a vacuum. It's so.
That's what's so terrible about this.
And I don't want to paint all bronies as
I'm sure
deviant monsters.
I'm sure the majority of them aren't. I'm sure the majority of them are just adult men who call themselves bronies that enjoy the show. But like, that's what's terrible about toxic fandom, is that like anybody who is new to a franchise and who sees anything that has to do with it online, they are going to reject those things. Like, they are never going to like want to affiliate with those people. Like, even if I would just wanted to sit down and watch My Little Pony, I could not go and like tell anyone, hey, I like watching My Little Pony, because then it would be immediately like, oh, that's kind of weird. Let me look online. Oh my god. Like, you don't want that attached to your reputation. And that's terrible. It shouldn't be that way, you know? Yeah. It should be you can enjoy whatever you want without having to worry about the stigma attached to it. But there is enough of a vocal minority who do and say these terrible, horrible, cringeworthy, toxic things that like you just don't want to get affiliated with it.
Yeah, and I'm not the only one who stepped away from it. I have a friend online who actually introduced me to it. This was a while ago. This was like, I think when the show was only on like its second season or something like that. My friends were having a conversation online. One of my friends was ribbing the other, like, and my other friend was like, no, like, I genuinely like it. It's well written. It's charming. It's funny. And I'm like, I guess I'll try it. And like, fast forward to some time later, like that same person was like, yeah, like I stopped watching it. And like the fandom just got too much for me. Like, I'm not the only one who the My Little Pony fandom pushed away. Like, I also know somebody else who stepped away from the show entirely, a show that he loved, because he got skeeved out too much where he couldn't just enjoy the show.
Yeah.
Like, that says a lot. And, like, to reiterate, I'm not trying to paint all bronies as gross deviants. I know for a fact that, like, because there's been a couple of documentaries made about them. I know for a fact that, the show has a very strong pull for people who have autism.
Yeah.
They see a lot of themselves in the characters, and they find a lot of appeal in the show in general, and that's great, you know. And they connect with other fans, and like they've been able to like.
But my God, the porn! There's so much.
The porn, yeah. Like we've kind of danced around.
We've danced around it.
There's just so much nasty, disgusting, gross.
And it's like, it's
one.
Okay.
They're animals for one. Two, they're children. They're children.
They're not even anthropomorphized animals. They're kids. There's so many like kids characters that. Oh God, what the fuck? What's wrong with you people? Same problem in like My Hero Academia and a lot of anime series, because a lot of anime series have younger protagonists and there's so much goddamn porn. What is wrong with you? They're kids.
Yeah. I'm not into anime. I don't really watch it that much, so but I know just through osmosis that there's the sexualization of children characters in the anime community.
Big problem with that is that the age of consent in Japan is 13.
Yeah,
But we're not going to get into a cultural thing there. That's its own discussion.
Oh God!
But
Everything's
still,
got to be porn. It's got to be porn.
it does. There's so much.
It's not even like the big, huge things that we've been talking about, like bigotry and just narcissism and entitlement. It's small dickbag things. Like there's this trend now with criticism where people like to use the word objectively.
Oh yeah, I hate that.
Like this is objectively better than this. Like I know that objectively, like this is a bad thing, but I still like. No.
Hey,
anytime I see somebody use the word objectively, if it's positive or negative, I'm just nope. I nope right at. I cannot stand it.
hey,
I
people,
cannot.
objectivity doesn't exist. We are all flawed
And
by
they
our
will-
personal perceptions. Our own ideas of reality isn't objective. We're all subjective to our perceptions and experiences. There is no objective truth or reality. Especially not in the entertainment.
They will argue tooth and nail that actually there are objective measures in which to like rate a movie / television show / like comic book, and it's like shut the fuck up. No, there's not. No, I don't care. Like, what are you gonna like? And they pull out like the most ridiculous like arguments. So like, are you gonna tell me that like a movie that is like out of focus the whole time with terrible audio isn't objectively bad? I'm like, pump the brakes here. For one, you're talking to a guy who watches shot on videotape VHS horror movies from the okay? I know what bad movies look like.
Yeah.
And even the worst movies I've ever seen aren't that bad. So that's an extreme example that doesn't exist in the real world. And second, these agreed upon standards that you like to talk about, those were still agreed upon by humans who have biases.
Yeah.
So
Go ask your dog which movie it likes better.
there is no objective way to critique a movie. Okay, wait, no, I take that back. There is. Let's review Iron Man 2. Iron Man 2 is a movie. Iron Man 2 stars Robert Downey Jr. Iron Man 2 is about Iron Man. That's an objective review of a movie. Other than that, nope.
Does that even count as a review? It's just facts. That's fact. That we're okay. Tongue and Geek is canceled. We're not doing reviews anymore. We're just doing factoids about films from now on.
Exactly. That's the point. Like that's the only way to objectively talk about a movie.
Yeah.
And I just see the objective argument all the fucking time now, and it makes me want to scream.
Here's a form of talk. I don't even know. This sort of blurs the line between what we were talking about earlier, where maybe it's just cringe or maybe it's full-on toxic. I don't really know. Something I've seen a lot of, particularly with like comics and manga and anime fans, is defending who would win in a fight arguments. And, you know, every big nerd loves having these arguments of like who would win between Goku and Superman and stuff. But like, when it becomes a full-on like fight, when it becomes like, you're a fucking idiot for thinking that Superman could beat Goku. Look at this. Like, if you look at like the Death Battle series on YouTube and you look up their Goku versus Superman episode, it is like mostly negative at this point. It's like by far their most like disliked video, and just so much. Like,
and there's two of them, isn't there?
There are, because they tried to address it again to explain themselves better, and people still hated it. Because they're like, no, Goku lost. Goku can't lose. Goku's the best. He's the strongest ever. And like, okay, if you want to make the argument that Goku's stronger than Superman, absolutely. I can see that. I might even agree with you. I'm not entirely sure of all their feats compared to each other. There's a lot of their history for both of them. But like, when it becomes the point to where, like, that's all you're fucking doing. Like, there's whole channels on YouTube who are dedicated to debunking Death Battle. And it's like, what? Just make your own Death Battle series if you want. Just make your own version of this where you pit two characters against each other and you do your own research. Like stop spending all of this time, like, going against this other group and calling them idiots for talking about fictional characters who, let's be entirely honest, the only reason either one of those characters would win against the other would depend on who's writing it and who they're a bigger fan of. Like,
yeah, they don't even occupy the same goddamn universe.
They don't. They're fake. They don't exist. They're concepts in a brain. Like, that's the reason that we have comics where Spider-Man will, like, go toe-to-toe with, like, light speed fighters in one comic, and then in the next one, he'll get beat up by, like, the Sandman. Like, there's no... Like, god damn it, they're fake! They're fake! It doesn't matter! There's no real science involved here! It's just a drawing!
It's supposed to be fun! It's just supposed to be fun! Like,
and again,
Superman fighting Goku is just a fun experiment!
Yeah,
it's not, like...
It's totally fine to debate these things and talk about them and even, you know, get playfully argumentative. That's okay. But when it becomes your entire, like, goal to debunk a different group who have a different opinion than you and call them idiots for, like, disagreeing with you, it's like, get a hobby. Like, go kiss a girl. go outside. I don't care if you're a guy or a girl. Go out and do something. Oh my god, just get a life. Stop fighting over everything.
Yeah, it makes, unfortunately, that kind of attitude just, like, takes us back to the days where liking the stuff something that got you a wedgie. Yeah, you know,
it's like, so damn childish. Like, I don't like the point.
You're a grown adult getting bent out of shape because a fun video made to entertain you had a character beating another character, and you wanted yours to win. Holy shit! This is a third grade argument.
Yes,
it's not serious.
Yes,
like
I hate to point to geek culture stuff and call it childish because there's so much value in it. But when people are having these kind of arguments so sincerely and so angrily, like, that does so much to put us back in the public eye. Like, who can look at two grown-ass men arguing vehemently over whether Superman or Goku would win in a fight and be like, yeah, those are rational, reasonable adults. Like, oh, look, they're throwing punches at each other now. I wonder which one of them will win. Like, God, just enjoy it. Have those arguments, have those discussions. If you're with your friends, you can get playfully argumentative about it. Certainly, Tyler and I have gotten playfully argumentative about certain things. But like, don't fight angrily online with strangers over it.
Yeah, we've never come to blows over our disagreements on.
I've never punched Tyler over which Ninja Turtle's the best. Okay.
And it boils down to just being able to put all this stuff in its proper context.
Yeah.
Like, we're both geeks. That's why the podcast is called Tongue and Geek. We love this shit. That's why we talk about it.
It's so
That's why we
engage
in it. Like, but as much as we love it, as much as we watch it, read it, play it, at the end of the day, we know that it's just a movie, a show, a book, a game. We put it in its proper context. It doesn't matter. Like, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter.
It improves the quality of our lives. It doesn't define our lives.
And that's what these people encompassing everything we've talked about so far, they just take it too personally. Yeah. They just treat it too seriously.
It's too real for them.
Like, you don't think that these filmmakers out here making these movies, like, you don't think that they live and breathe this shit? Of course they do. But they're still rational, sane people that know when to turn it on and turn it off.
Yeah.
They know when to step away from it. They know when to put it in its proper context. Like, you don't spend over a decade of your life playing Iron Man or Captain America or some other character if you don't love it. But, like, if Robert Downey Jr. can play Iron Man for so long and be defined, have his career defined by it, and still step away from it, you as a watcher of the movies or a reader of the comics can do the same thing. Like,
yeah,
you might love Tony Stark, but he's still just an illustration on a page.
Yeah,
he's still just a character in a movie. Like, just take a breath. Like, to be cliche, go outside.
Look at the sun.
Do something else.
Stare at the sun.
Do something else.
Yeah, stare at the sun until you can't see anymore so that you can't type your stupid arguments onto the internet.
Oh, good gravy. Whew.
We've touched on a lot. We should maybe address now, here that we're close to the end, what do we do about toxic fandom? How do we address toxic fandom?
That is something that I still haven't quite figured out my stance on, to be honest with you.
I don't think there's any solid, perfect answers for this, because, if we could get rid of toxic fans, we would have by now.
It's so complicated.
It is. There's an old adage, an old internet adage, and by old internet, I mean probably like a few years. Don't feed the trolls. So, obviously, if you see people who are just spamming hateful comments and stuff, like talking shit on the things you like, ignore them. Those people, they're looking for attention. They're trying to get attention out of these things. They're trying to force you to give them what they want, which is your attention. And when you try and argue with them, they're just going to use circular arguments and, escalate their persecution complex. It's not going to actually end with you changing their mind. That said, there are going to be times when you can't just ignore people online. There's going to be times when they're attacking people, when they're harassing people, maybe even you, and that's not something that should just be ignored. If you're getting tons of messages from somebody who's hating on you for something, for liking something, like a fan art you drew or an opinion you expressed on social media, ban and block. There's nothing wrong with avoiding an argument, with avoiding a fight. Pick your battles. Some people it's worth having debates over things about, but a lot of people, especially on the internet, it's not. Ban them, block them, report them, do whatever you have to.
Yeah, I can't argue with any of that. Speaking personally, I've oscillated between having two opinions on how to deal with this kind of stuff. I think as the internet has become more ubiquitous in our lives over the past 20 years, the saying like, "Oh, you can't tell somebody's intent over the internet," I don't think that holds as much water as it used to, because we've all been on the internet for so long now and for increased periods of time now that within the context of certain conversations and groups and stuff like that and websites, we can kind of pick up when somebody's being a troll and just trying to bait somebody or being sincere. You can kind of tell if somebody's just trying to get a rise out of something. When it comes to somebody being like an harasser, spewing bigotry, stuff like that, on one hand I've felt like, you know what, these people, there's nothing we can say to them to get them to change their mind. Engaging with them is only giving them what they want, so we should just ignore them and let them toil away in their little dungeons themselves. I've been of that mindset, but I've also been of the mindset, no, wait a second, these people shouldn't just get away scot-free with all the shit they want to perpetuate. They shouldn't be allowed to say nasty, evil shit about characters and actors and actresses. And
I think
they should be called out. But it's hard to
It's a hard line for me if they're just spewing general hateful shit, racism, homophobia, all that stuff. Ignore them. They want your attention. They want to feel like they have a platform. You're not going to convince them to change their minds. But if they're attacking someone in particular, like if they're attacking an actress or a creator or whatever, that's when you can stand up and defend that person, because even though you won't change that person's mind, you're not going to change the troll's mind, you're not going to change the toxic person's mind, but you standing up and making that defense of that actress or that creator is going to mean the world to them. It's going to show that, hey, there are people out there who's aren't shitty, that do care and have empathy for me, even if they don't agree with, or even if they don't like the things I make. It's a reminder that there are real good people out there.
Yeah. It's just I struggle with how much is calling these people out really the right thing to do, because how much of it is just fueling them to keep doing it, and how much of it is just emboldening their followers. How much of it is actually going to make people say hey, wait a second, yeah, these people are wrong. I shouldn't listen to them. At what point does calling them out just help them? You know,
For
keep
the
them
most-
in the keep them exposed.
For the most part, I would say always. I would say if they are bringing shit up, then they are absolutely getting what they want if you give them any attention. They want to feel like they have a platform to talk on. They want to feel like their voice matters, even if it's spewing hateful, vile shit. But if you don't give them that platform, then that's the right answer. But there are times when you're going to have to respond to them because they're hurting individual people. They're hurting creators and actors and fan artists and stuff with their hateful shit. They're targeting them directly. And that's when you go in and you say, hey, this isn't cool. This is a person. They have feelings. You report them. You ban them. You do whatever you have to. But,
Yeah.
And again, it's not easy to always tell what their correct answer is. That's just my personal take on it. But, we're never going to get rid of toxic fandom because, it's not a matter of the content itself being toxic or the general group of people who like that content being toxic. It's toxic behaviors that develop around content and the taking of content too seriously and the misinterpretation of the meanings and values in it.
Yeah.
It's never going to go away altogether, but we can do what we can to address it. Also, advocate for your fandom. If you're in a fandom that gets a lot of shit for being awful, like we just talked about the My Little Pony community, there's lots of good people out there who like My Little Pony or any other fandom. Steven Universe, there's a lot of really good, kind-hearted people in that fandom. Rick and Morty, there's a lot of smart, thoughtful, introspective people in that community. These aren't idiots who are all fans of these things. And the way to counter against the small vocal minority is to make your voice heard, Express your love for your fandom in a way that's healthy and creative and shows your passion and what this series or franchise means to you. Give more examples of good fandom to drown out the toxic.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, you don't even have to engage with the negative side.
Yeah.
You can just be a part of the positive side.
That's, like I said, with the in-person stuff, like with cosplay and everything I've done, it's so much more positive because the people who are going to do toxic shit are either usually kicked out of conventions or they're not bold enough to pull that shit in public. So, if you're getting really sick of the fandom online, take a break from it, Don't go onto Reddit. Don't look at social media for a while. Just go and, go to some fan conventions. I know that they're starting to come back now that the quarantine's starting to go down. Or have a little fan get-together if you can't get to a convention. Find some friends that you have that share the same thing and just talk about it yourselves. Enjoy the real interactions, the real personal human interactions that those shows can allow you to have. Those shows, those games, those movies, those comics, those have impacts on our everyday lives and allow them to impact you positively.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Because what you were saying just now, it reminded me of we were going to do Zack Snyder's Justice League last week for the podcast. We were going to talk about it. I loved the movie. You were mostly mixed with it. You just thought it was all right. Had a lot of problems with it. But I canceled because I canceled not because Isaac didn't like it as much as me, and I didn't want to talk about it with him because I love it and he doesn't love it.
I'm gonna dunk on you, boy.
It's because I was so burnt out with the fandom, how I described earlier in this show.
Yeah.
That I just kind of didn't want to just talk about it at all. Yeah. I just kind of wanted to sit with it myself and be like, I liked it. I really like it. I love it, and that's it. I just don't want to talk about it.
And that's fine. I get that. I would love to have that discussion with you, and we may do it sometime down the line. But also, you're totally entitled to separate yourself from that. Your enjoyment of that. Your enjoyment of things does not have to spark anything. So you can enjoy things just to enjoy things. You're not entitled to defend it. You're not entitled to create things from it. If it hurts to have to engage with it outside of the just raw taking in of the entertainment itself, then just enjoy taking in the entertainment itself and don't engage with fandom.
Yeah, and I kind of beat myself over canceling that episode because I'm like, don't be a little baby. Just, just talk about the movie. Who cares?
Well, you did message me right afterwards, and you were like, "But I'm right and you're wrong." Ha 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 ha. That was a bitch move.
Come on, man. Just take it on the chin and just talk about it with your buddy Isaac. It's not a big deal. But at the end of the day, it was just it's true, but it's just my buddy Isaac, and he's not gonna, at the end of the day, any ribbing he gives me for the movie is gonna be in good nature.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day,
eventually we're gonna have an audience for this thing, and then,
at the end of the day, I just didn't want to deal with it because I've heard it before.
Yeah.
And I blame the fandom for ruining our podcast.
It's fine. There's plenty of stuff we still have. There's so much stuff out there that we can talk about that we don't have to worry about.
Yeah, and we're going to be hypocrites at some point when we rip to shreds Thor Ragnarok for 2 hours.
We're not Okay, I promise I'm going to try my absolute hardest not to say anything negative about people who like Ragnarok. My general sense of humor is that sometimes I like to sort of make little jabs at people for multiple reasons. I just kind of have a sardonic wit, but I will try my absolute best to just talk about the film itself and not talk shit about the people who like it, because people like this whole thing has been about how the toxicity comes from harming people for having different opinions than you. It's not a bad thing to argue with people, to debate with them over things, but when you start making it into something that's hurtful, when you start taking these arguments so seriously that you hurt people, then it's bad. Then it's toxic.
Yeah, yep. It's pretty much that simple.
So I just want you all to know that if you like Thor Ragnarok, we love you. Thank you for listening. You're wrong, but you're entitled to be wrong.
Yes, you're entitled to your crappy taste in Marvel movies.
You're not a crappy person. You just have bad taste.
Crappy taste.
It's not your fault.
Okay. Oh, there it is. There's that sardonic wit.
There it is. One last thing before we go. It's easy to talk about toxic fandom when you're talking about it from an outsider's viewer perspective, but a lot of people get caught up in it and get they get this harassment, they get these attacks. I just want to share a link. This is privacyrights.org. This is going to be a bit long. It's privacyrights.org/consumer-guides/online-harassment-cyberstalking. This is a resource that gives some links to some other resources as well on general information about what cyberstalking is, what online harassment is, what you can do about it, how you can respond to it, other resources to help deal with it, some legal things that you can even do if it's taken so far as to cross legal boundaries. I think it's just a good resource for people to look into if they're receiving this kind of harassment, because sometimes it feels like the world's against you, and I just want you to know that there are ways of dealing with this, and there are people out there who care.
All right, awesome.
On to our very last thing. I have spoiled the fun with our outro. My mother is aware of the podcast, so Tyler, we need a new sign-off. I've prepared a few for your consideration, but if you don't like any of them, we can do some brainstorming.
Hit me with it.
Hope you liked it. No refunds.
Kind of hokey.
Okay. Excelsior.
Derivative.
Okay. Beat it, you bozos.
What is this? A 1930s gangster movie?
I don't know. Maybe a bit too antagonistic too. So long, gay Bowsers. A reference to the Mario 64 for the Nintendo 64.
Okay, a little over my head because I'm a boomer. Yeah. I'm not really a boomer, but
you were probably more Mario 64 era than I was.
I was, but I don't remember anything about it.
Smell you later.
Smell you later.
The reference to Pokemon. Your opinion matters, but not as much as ours.
I like that one.
You do like that one?
I like that one.
It's so counter to everything we've been saying today. You can't get back the time you spent listening to us.
That's a good one.
Okay, and the last one, short and simple. Later, nerds.
Either the opinion one or the
You like
time.
you like the shitty asshole, the two shitty asshole ones I came up with? Okay.
Yeah.
um,
It's more on brand for our personas.
I think you can't get back the time you spent listening to us is a little more tongue in cheek, as it were. Ha ha ha.
Yeah, so a little bit more tongue and geeky.
Mm-hmm. So let's go with that one. So everybody, thank you for listening to Tongue and Geek, another online series where two white guys on the internet share all their opinions unsolicited about all things geeky. And you can't get back the time you spent listening to us.
Don't even try.